In this video, I'm going to give you a bird's eye view looking down at me having a chat with a principal software engineer who works at Amazon. He's been there for 20 years. You probably know who he is. He's the owner of the YouTube channel, A Life Engineered. His name is Steve Huynh. He's got a great YouTube channel. You should check him out. We had a chat and somehow I convinced him to mentor me. As many of you know, I work at Square as an Android engineer. And now that I have a job, this is my first job ever. I know I've been an Android developer for several years, but I never actually had a job. I got a job now, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling to climb the corporate ladder. It's very different than sitting down and writing code all day. So I reached out to Steve, who has so much experience in the field. He makes great videos, gives great advice, and I asked him to mentor me, and somehow I convinced him. In this video, I'm going to show you how I convinced him. I really can't emphasize enough how great of a chat this was, mostly because he gave me some highly personalized advice, but I suspect that a lot of you are probably struggling with the same issues that I'm struggling at your job. He gives me some great tips and things that I can do to help move me along in my promotion cycle, or what to do for my next one, how to prepare for it. Generally, this is good advice. I really suggest you watch this video if you're struggling to get promoted, or even if you're not. These are good tips anyway. Maybe you had no problem getting promoted, but I suspect if you listen to these, you will get promoted even faster.
But the thing that I've been thinking about to actually differentiate is this like mentoring series. And so what I was really gonna what I wanted to do is basically be like, make a video called "Can I Be Your Mentor?" Because every single day, you included, somebody is like, "Hey, can you mentor me?" Every single day. In my internal Slack, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, like everybody is sending a message. They're just like, can you be my mentor? And it's like, no, I don't have fucking time. Like I would like, I know. I don't say that.
I get it. I mean? Yeah.
It probably happens to you a ton. The big thing is, I think a lot of the benefit, like a lot of the interest in my channel is like being in a room with a conversation or some advice that you would just not get, right? Like elsewhere, like just being the fly in the wall. And, and then, either it's basically like my office hours. I'm like, hey, this is what you should be thinking about in your career. Or, and this is why I think it'd be good, like talking to somebody like you, and then going like longitudinally, just be like, hey, you get to listen in to Steve and Mitch talk about like career progression or whatever. I was gonna like open it up to like literally have people apply to be my mentee.
I think it's very practical, because like I have so many things that like I never would have watched your channel or Rahul's channel, for example, like a year ago, because I have no use for it. But now it's like the things you guys say are just like, they're hitting the buttons. I'm like, yeah.
The dopamine is just like, oh my God. But then like the internet could like just listen in on our conversing.
That's a good idea.
I was talking to some people though. They're like, man, you need to get somebody that's like okay on camera.
Yeah, duh. Well, I don't know. Yeah, a lot of people are very awkward on camera, and you got to get, and then you got to find the right person who's at the right level.
Yes.
Someone who you think will be successful by listening to your advice, and then somebody who is not crazy weird on camera.
Yeah.
So that's hard to find.
So like, when you slid into my DMs, I'm just like, oh my God, there's somebody that, like, you have more subscribers than I do. That's great. Obviously you're fine on camera. And then you're like, oh, hey, I've tried a bunch of stuff, non-traditional background. Now I work for, Megacorp or whatever. Like, I need to get promoted. I'm like, wow, you're perfectly my demographic. You know what I mean?
It just happened to. That's funny.
What are your cycles, the promotion cycles? Would it be beginning of the year? Or?
Yeah, I think they do them January, like early January, and then they do another one like May or something. And then it's a 3-month time period to get the result. L4.
Okay, so you came in at 4?
Senior is 5. Senior is level 5. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just like a regular old engineer.
Meteor. Whatever the fuck they call them.
Yeah. Whatever. I understand it though, because like I did very well on all the technical stuff, but it's just like I have no work experience, and it's and to get hired at a senior level, because that's what they were saying. Do we hire him at a senior, or do we hire him at L4? and then they ended up going with the L4.
L3 or L4.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it because I have no work experience. It's like that's a big risk for a company to take, I guess. So, but things have been going well, and I went through that one. I went through a promotion cycle in May, and the ones that said no basically said we need to see more. And I'd only done one engineering design, and that was a big one just because I hadn't been given the opportunity. Like I only did one design, and now when I go for next, I should have 3, maybe 4.
Okay.
So yeah.
When you do a promotion at Megacorp, like at a big company, oftentimes you won't get through, but the whole point of these processes that they engineer are that you get the feedback that you need, right? And so it is a broken process if people just give you a binary response. They're just basically like, hey, you didn't get it, right? And then you just kind of like walk away, tail between your legs, and then you're like, you try again, you didn't get any feedback. But the sacred law that that this process has to produce is actionable feedback for you, right? So we no longer just say no, go and figure it out, right? And so if you're not getting, and so we said no to like a ton of folks like this last cycle, and so like I'm like, hey, we said no, but we have to just be like, give them a ton of feedback with actionable things, right? Like you need more. I'm just pulling some shit out of my ass. Like you need more. Like cross-team impact and influence, might be something. And then we would have to be like, what does that mean for this person's situation?
Oh, very specific.
Yeah, like
that's more specific than Square.
Yeah, so it really like that's what I'm pushing for, because I went through this process like 4 or 5 times, and it was like demoralizing.
Yeah, because you don't know. You throw your hands up in the air, basically. You're like, what the fuck do I do? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And so here's the thing. You and your manager, if you're not getting that direct and actionable feedback, it's incumbent on like your manager, at least from my perspective, you just be like, hey, remember that stuff that we got back in May and June or whatever? And it says like, I needed to do more design documents. Or designs, there's probably other feedback as well. Like, it might be design documents. It might be some soft skill stuff. It might be
literally my feedback was do more designs. We need to see more and mentorship. Yeah.
So here's what you do, right? So for the four times that I went through that I didn't get through, I literally wrote a postmortem document. It had 3 sections. It had like, I received feedback. Here are the positive bits of feedback. I'm doing well with coding. I'm doing well with design on my team. Steve has bias for action, whatever the fuck it is. And then it's just like, then there's like the feedback. And so it was basically like, Steve has more like cross-team influence. He needs to design bigger things. He needs to earn the trust of like VP level people, whatever it was. And then I had a 3rd section, which is basically like, here is my plan for the next 6 months, because actually 6 months is like no time at all.
Yeah, I know. It just flies.
And so it's literally like, okay, cool. It's 6 months. Like Christmas time is going to be here. Like you might have a baby. Like, people actually have to like go and fetch all of that information. There's this whole time where they like actually have to, get into the enclave and vote for you, which means you have like 3 months or whatever it is. If you like work backwards from that date, you have 3 months to demonstrate that you're working at the next level, which is like no time if you have to do like 2 designs or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Which means like, hey, what are my 2? So you have to come up with a concrete plan. And so then I took that postmortem document and then I shopped it around. I took it to my manager. I took it to the people that I knew were on the committee. I took it to the people that were all involved in the process. I took it to my some like senior principals that were mentoring me at the time, and I'm like, hey, did I receive the feedback correctly? And then like, does this plan, if I were able to execute on this concrete plan, would that push me over the edge? Like when I finally got my, when I did that, when I got like super systematic about it, right? That's when
a good idea.
I only got to the next, I got to one level like right before, and there were still some things. And so like when you receive feedback, and I'm thinking about making a video on this, when you like receiving critical feedback is like one of the hardest things that you can do. Like that's a skill that is so difficult to do right. And so when somebody's giving you feedback, your first instinct is to get like defensive,
Yeah,
right?
of course. You gotta fight that off. You gotta like take it in and be like, okay, I know this feeling. You just get rid of that.
Then you're like, oh, then you get like all depressed and shit because they're just like, you know, telling you about your flaws and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
The critical thing is to like listen, to actively listen, and to not respond to the feedback but receive it, right? And then in the moment, like process it a little bit. And then when you ask questions, you want to clarify specifically what that feedback was so that you actually understand what it is.
Yeah, you gotta,
because actually people don't hear it sometimes.
Yeah, or they hear it and then like because you're emotional, you don't clarify the things that need to be clarified.
Yes.
Like because they'll give you feedback and sure it's specific-ish, but then you need to think about it implementation wise and like ask the questions to get the feedback so you can act on it.
Yes. Yeah. And so there's the clarification on that feedback that can happen in the moment when they, you know, deliver it to you verbally. There's the clarification of the feedback if it's written, right? And then there's a clarification of the feedback after you've actually had time to digest all of that stuff. And I was like, hey, I was thinking about it. I've received it. Like, there's maybe a finer and subtle point. Like, what exactly are you saying? Mm-hmm. Right? And so like, there's these 3 layers of actually receiving the feedback. Then only after that point can you be like, okay, I have reversed engineered this process. I understand what the bar is. I understand what they're saying about me. It's all true. Most of the time, it's like completely true. There is a situation where they don't have visibility on something that you've done, you know, so there's an edge case there. Mm. And so when you come up with that plan, right? So it sounds like, hey, you know, I will sort of map it to your world. I needed to do 2 more designs. So I did, you know, I needed to do more designs. I had done like 0.75 designs. And so I need to kill it there. Mm. Here are the 2 designs that I'm planning on doing. That is a half measure. So that's a half step. What you need to do is you need to go find somebody at that next level and just be like, if you haven't done this already, and just be like, are these designs of high quality? Is the scope right? Is this something that you would expect to come from an L5 Square engineer? That is what you need to go and do right now, and that you can do. If you haven't done that, like you should be going to do that right now. Like I'm sure there's peers or people just like at the L5 or L6 level over at Square, where you can be like, hey, here's my design. There's this other process where we actually talk about, you know, whether this is a good design or not, and talk about the constraints and assumptions and all that bullshit. There's this other type of meta feedback that you can do, which is like, does this feel like something an L5 engineer would produce that you would just be like, yeah, that's L5.
I should probably write this down. Yeah, that's a good idea.
You can get ahead of this. Like you just like run ahead of it. And so when you know, it's September right now, you're getting near the end of like when you can actually change direction on this ship. So you just be like, you know, I'm sure you have some friends there. And if you don't, that's a different problem. We should probably talk about that.
I got lots of people I could ask.
Yeah. So just be like, hey, read this document, not for the technical content necessarily, but they should have, you know, I mean,
I've already got the people on my team who are above me. Like my most senior person on my team who read it, approved it. They already know it in detail. I just didn't ask the question, is this the scope and quality of an L5 to them?
Yes.
So that's all I need to do, really.
Yeah, and this literally be like, if not, don't. So I think you understand what I'm saying here, but don't just go and change the document to, you know, respond in kind to the feedback. But you need to ask yourself, why didn't I know to add this, you know, to the document? Why didn't I understand that the scope was too big or too narrow, right? There's like a meta thing there where it's basically like people at this level like instinctively understand, you know, and can reason and can make about a judgment about these documents. What about my process? Or like, was there some assumption or like baked in piece of knowledge? Was there some bias on my side? You know, or is it, you know, were you ignorant of it? Or like, what is the reason that I didn't just do the thing that they're giving me feedback on? Like that meta analysis is the most critical piece.
Why didn't I think that? Why didn't I? It's like there's 10 ways to do a problem, solve a problem. Why did all of the seniors choose method B? Why did I go C? or halfway, it's like, I need to have thought that way. Why didn't I think that way?
And so, yeah, when people are L3, like getting promoted to L4, they are in that same boat too. They're like, well, like, here's my implementation. Well, why is it that everybody that's L5 and L6 like stays away from the implementation that I had? Like they all immediately go to the same branch, right? And they still, and like everybody like just solves it this way. Like, why didn't I just immediately go and walk down that path too? Right? So same thing at your level, recursively. It's also true. When you want to get from L5 to L6, it's going to be the same thing. If somebody from L6 got demoted to L5, they would be like, oh my God, this is a fucking vacation. I have to do some designs, but these designs aren't like of the scale and complexity that like my day-to-day is. And so when you get to LA, it's the same thing. Actually, I'm not it. Yeah, I guess levels at FYI says L8 is the same as close to L6. Anyways, there's overlap. When you get to L8, you're just going to be like, oh my God, it'd be a freaking vacation if I was in, that previous one. And so you just need to be like, hey, what's that delta in terms of like skills, intuition, judgment, or whatever, right? From that everybody seems to have at that next level that I, for some reason, don't have right now. That delta is hard to find, but usually it's going to be a really simple thing that you can like summarize in like 2 sentences.
Yeah, probably. It'll be like oh, because if you do it that way, you're going to run into like these set of problems, or we've tried that before and that was bad. So
then they'll be able to express it in like 2 sentences, and you'll be like, oh, cool, now I have that knowledge. Right? And then you're just like, but like, how long did it take you to even formulate a question that would uncover that thing that you weren't seeing?
Right.
That's like the hard part. Right.
Yeah, that's like the classic example. I always like, so I do some interviews, like I review take-home projects and things like that. And like one of the biggest like red flags that always stands out to me is like, because it's you can do a take-home project at Square to as apply, and you have to add unit tests to it for Android. And if they don't add unit tests, this is like
easy.
It's so easy, but it's such a big red flag.
No, you're just like no, hard pass.
It is because if
hard
you
no,
didn't,
right?
if you didn't write
hard no.
If you didn't write a unit test, that doesn't just tell me you don't know how to write unit tests. That tells me that you don't know why unit tests are important. You've never thought about how you should write your code so that it's unit testable. It's like it's like this little thing that just bubbles into this massive thing.
Yeah, it's like, I already know I don't want to work with you, right? like, and it's not going to be because of the lack of unit tests. There's a whole class of things.
Yeah, like I don't care about the unit tests. They're easy to write. It's not, or they should be, and it's the other things that it means.
Yeah, exactly. And so there is a class of that for you getting to that next level, and then the next level after that, right? And here's the thing about it that I think is difficult to bottle, and which is why like every YouTuber that's successful, they typically gravitate around the things that are objective. So like coding or leak code or, interviews for entry level stuff or whatever, is that the next level after entry level and mid level is completely like environmental and like specific to that situation, right? And so like you getting to L5 is there's a Square context there, right? That's specific to Square, the way that you guys do designs at Square. There's a way, like there's a politics there, there's an organizational structure there, there's a culture there. Right? And so that doesn't transport to Amazon or to Google. And in fact, within Amazon, that doesn't transport. There are so many different pockets of culture, and so like in my comment section, it's terrible. They're like, oh, you have no soul, you work for Amazon, like you pee in a bottle or whatever. And I'm just like, I support the workers in these warehouses. Like I would never work on a team where I'm like crying at my desk because they're like, pushing me to work 100 hours in a week. Like I'm in a really awesome place, but the thing is, like, I'm sure it exists because for any population, like, it's like, think about a town that has 100,000 people in it.
Yeah.
Can you say anything about that town other than like the highest level of like generic things where something is true? Like, no.
Yeah, there's going to be pockets of all kinds of shit that you'd never think.
Yes.
And
so here's the thing, like the advice that I would give you, like it maps a little, like, but it's like, it's so personal to Mitch and Square and the situation that you're in, right? I can talk about generic ass things You know what I mean? And then see if it maybe fits you or whatever, right? But that's kind of that's a difficult art. It's so much easier to talk about like how you can grind leak code questions, right? And then get into a big like, you know, tech firm or whatever. Because that's the equivalent of like a leak code problem is like, hey, I write it, did it go through? You have unit tests, it's objective or whatever,
Yeah.
right? When you try to get into like this mentorship game, this career growth game within tech, there's like nobody. It's like Rahul. And
Yeah,
then like
yeah. Well,
that's it.
you and Rahul were the first ones, really.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't exist. It kind of was convenient for me because I just started working. It's like, great, hey, look, guys started making videos on this stuff. Perfect. But yeah, there's nobody like that I know of other than tech lead. But he's more like a meme than anything.
Well, I love the way you just call him a meme.
He is a meme. What do you mean?
Oh my god,
he knows he's a meme.
So there's nobody in this space, and so like I think I'll occupy it. The thing is like
not of piece of shit space. And,
oh yeah, hopefully.
And good advice.
Yeah, no, the advice for mid to high like career software engineers, like there's just nothing out there.
Yeah, there's
right?
lots of entry level. Entry level makes money. That's why. You know, like beginner courses make money, leak code questions make money.
Yeah.
It's just because everybody's desperate to get the job. But yeah, there's nothing for the, you know, people who have jobs who want to move up. That was it. I hope you enjoyed it. My chat with Steve Huynh. There's a bunch of other clips I want to add too. We talked for like an hour and a half, so this is just a bunch of stuff that I pulled out of the chat. But I hope that we actually do go through this sort of mentorship and mentee thing that he was talking about throughout the video. I think I'd be great for it. You know, I actually have a job, so I would take in his advice, try to implement it at my workplace, and then hopefully get some results. And if I don't get results, then of course it's Steve's fault. It's not my fault because he gave me the advice. Shouldn't give me bad advice, Steve. Thanks for watching as always. Remember, if you want to learn how to become an Android engineer, a professional Android developer in the industry, go to codingwithmitch.com. Watch the best Android courses in the world. Some of them are free, some are paid. Free doesn't necessarily mean it's worse than paid, but I had to make money somehow. So some are free, some are paid. Thank you, Steve, again, and I hope we can do a podcast again soon. Oh, and don't forget your engagement. If you like this kind of content, if you want to see Steve mentoring me, watch my hopefully my career growth at Square. Go, hit the like button, leave a comment down below, leave some kind of engagement, any comment at all. Hello, Mitch. I like the video, Mitch. Mitch, your hair is stupid. Whatever you want, some kind of comment. I'll see you in the next video.